Cycle Solutions is your one-stop shop for upgrades and service. Cycle Solutions, Fort Myers, and CycleSolutions.com. Taking your bike from the street to the strip.
Hi, this is Chris Waddell from Cycle Solutions. Got a heck of a big project we're about to do. We have a 2018 big wheel bike. It's got a little wheel on the front right now because we needed it to be manageable here and be able to put it on the dyno when we're done with what we're doing. So this all started out as a cam chest upgrade. When we got inside of it, they found the crank was pretty twisted. So 300 miles on this bike and the crank was almost 10 thousandths out. So we sent it to Dark Horse. Dark Horse went through. They did a balanced, straightened, balanced, welded crankshaft for us. Put it back together, and then we had Dan at Zippers build us a 124-inch kit that I then sent to Diamond Heads and had all our parts diamond cut. So, talking about the meat and potatoes of this, I have a set of Zippers flat top billet pistons, and we mark everything when we do these motors, rear and front, needless to say. Set of their new jugs. This is a bolt-in 124-inch upgrade on a 107-inch motor. It's a beautiful work of art, really. Most bling you can possibly put on one of these bikes. Headwork. All new valves, seats, guides. It's been decked, it's ported, and it has what you call a frosted polish. There's no mirrored stuff needed here. So this particular kit, when done right with the D&D 2-in-1, or in this case we're using a Freedom Performance 2-in-1, should make in the neighborhood of 150 horsepower at the rear wheel. The bike has a bunch of cool stuff going on. To put the power to the ground, we're going to use the Trask billet clutch basket and a Recluse torque drive clutch. We were able to get away with, in most cases, stock springs, but in this case the Recluse clutch comes with 3 of its own springs, makes it just a hair stronger. On the cam side of things, we're going to be using the fueling cam plate and the fueling oil-cooled oil pump. I'm partial to these pumps and plates. I like the 2-stage pump. One stage feeds oil in and the other stage feeds it back to the oil tank. The third stage, when you're separating cavities, it's kind of iffy in my opinion. Something we see a lot of, and we figured out real quick on this bike, is the crank sprocket shaft here is loose. That's the stock crank sprocket. So fueling, and you can see how it wobbles, so it's hard to keep proper time because it does move. And then if you get to really looking at it, it starts to round at the corners from rocking back and forth. So fueling has a sprocket they've been making us now for quite some time that you can't even hardly put on with your hands. So you tap it on with a rubber mallet and it's so stiff, so you even hear it won't move side to side or front to back. It just maintains perfect time. So that'll be going in here. When we put this together, pistons, the heads, the jugs, everything's put together. One of the things that we'll be using inside this motor will be the T-Man breather valve assembly. So this is quite an upgrade over the plastic part. For anybody who's ever been inside a 2-stroke motor, it looks like a little bitty 2-stroke reed valve inside of it, kind of like a little Boys and Reed. So the pressure enters this device, which is mounted in the head, goes through here, goes to a little flapper valve, boom, out, goes on out the fictitious, if you will, breather vent holes. The second the pistons start a different direction and start to pull air back in, slams shut, suction seals, and it doesn't allow air to enter back in the motor. And by keeping the pressure going out of the engine and nothing going back in, it allows the bottom of the fueling oil pump and its pickup, clear at the bottom here, to do its job and continually to remove oil that starts to build up in the bottom of the motor, which is called wet sumping. So most of these bikes that we've done with this combination, and we've got a couple dozen out there, have no wet sumping problems whatsoever. It should be noted that we also use the fueling vented dipstick here as opposed to the stock one. One of the things that led us to understand these problems, you have an O-ring here which is there to seal it so stuff doesn't come out. Problem is it's sealed so good when these motors get hot and this was screwed in. Guy come in for an oil change at motorcycle rally, and we cannot, for the life of us, get this thing out. I mean, you had to use channel locks to get them to loosen up. And when you did get to start coming out, all of a sudden you hear it just go and blow off pressure. So we knew we had an issue. With the fueling vented dipstick, which will go here, and there'll be a line that goes up and over the tail and will come out back in the back, there's no pressure ever to build inside the oil tank. So it eliminates the transference problem in that area. So those two pieces and parts are used together, the T-man and the fueling part, along with the fueling oil pump and cam plate. It's a killer combination. Now the plastic parts that the factory puts in the bike to keep the lifters in check are pretty much a joke. Okay, so this is a billet S&S lifter guide. It'll mount down there, and when you put the lifters in, you got to make certain that they're both free. But the flats here keep the lifter oriented properly on the cams, so you don't have any skate going on with the wheels, or have them, in worst case scenario, rotate, which we've already seen happen, and destroy a motor. So that's a great little upgrade right there. Just if you're going to put a set of these in, you make sure you install them properly. Make sure that those lifters go up and down after they're properly torqued, because if you don't, you'll have a problem. So some neat stuff. Trask has finally released all the parts for the M8. It's kind of cool because we'll be able to see this. So this glass cam cover will have this beautiful red part sitting right behind it. So you'll be able to see all of the inner workings. We've got the primary cover, so you'll be able to see the recluse clutch and the Trask basket inside of it. It's going to be pretty slick when we're done. So all that to say this, when we get done putting this motor together, personally, I will use Lucas oil. It will be non-synthetic. I use a non-synthetic oil in it because I feel like the ring pack is very closely spaced on these bikes, and you have a large bore. Super slick, super hot oil seems to find its way past the rings, and it winds up on top of the pistons. And when we took this bike apart for the customer, first thing we saw was about literally 1/8 of an inch of wet, soggy, charred cake from oil burn on it. This bike literally only has 300 miles on it. So we also did a measurement of how much oil was inside this engine with a pan, and when we opened it up, it was all the way up to the actual pinion shaft here. So it was quite full. I think almost 24 ounces of oil. So that's way too much. In other words, when the wheels are spinning here, when the flywheels are moving, it's hydrolocking. It's actually running in mud. The flywheels are spinning in oil, and they shouldn't be. They should be free of oil. Another little point to make. Dark Horse does a great crank, and we have some other manufacturers that do cranks for us as well, and they all do great work. This particular man wanted Dark Horse to do it, so that's who we chose. This flywheel has the Timken bearing conversion upgrade, okay? And there is no effort here whatsoever, folks, in moving this. The counterbalancer and the counterbalancer gear are not in this motor anymore. We take them out, and it's literally about 5 pounds of rotational mass. If you do the math when it's spinning, that's a couple thousand pounds of moving metal at 100 miles an hour. So we get rid of it. There's no need for it. Once the motor and the crank and everything's balanced, in this particular case, the pistons, the weight of the pistons were figured into the balance of the crank. So this thing will be absolutely butter smooth when we're done. We've got a 30-inch wheel that goes on this bike. We'll be putting that on when we're ready to get her down. And do a little tuning on the Thunder Max. We've done some other stuff with the bars. It has a set of 14-inch bars. This has the non-modified neck, so it's a factory frame, and this particular piece here is mounted so you can put the big tire on without cutting your frame in half. If you'd like to continue to receive videos, make sure you check us out on cyclesolutions.com or like us on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be notified when new videos from Cycle Solutions are released, hit the like and subscribe button to follow us.